Hi, this is Street Life and I'm Natasha, back at it with a recap and discussion of the original Top Boys Summerhouse Season 2, Episode 2. I was surprised to find that Joe was still alive because whoever that shooter was, they seemed to spray the car. He was hanging out of it and whatnot, looked like he was a goner. Fortunately, he didn't die, but he is banged up. He's in the hospital. Dushane goes to visit him to get some intel about what happened to the drugs, who might have tried to hit him. Joe identifies the Albanians, which up to this point we haven't really seen, but have heard mention of them, like when they were previously meeting with the other boss. And so apparently it sounds like the Albanians are some rowdy people. Dushane has some belief, right? He's going to go out to try to find them to get his drugs back, because without this, is going to severely mess up his business, them stealing his supply. But in the midst of all of this, back at Summerhouse, it's business as usual. Jim is now in problems with Vincent because he took over growing from Raynell, but kind of messed up things, right? Messed up the crop. The plants didn't fare very well under his care. And so Vincent has invested in this grow and is looking to get back his money. Because he views it as Jem messed up his money, Jem is now in a tough spot and has Vincent basically bullying him. This is a kid. Vincent is a grown man. And so he forces Jem to take a package to drop off to someone else. Jem doesn't know what's inside or anything like that. Here it is that, he was just selling. Vincent's selling, but he's just growing weed for this guy, messes up, and now he's more deeply involved in things. And likewise, we see in Summerhouse, right? The crew are about, but so are the police, right? There's a heavy police presence in the area. Michael has been moving a bit closer to Dushane and sort of being taken under his wing. So Michael and some of the other kids, because the police are out, they have to get off the street. So they go to what appears to be a mall. One of the kids that deals with them, her cousin works at a sneaker store, and they have this plan that they're going to go in, try on sneakers while her cousin looks on, and run away. Michael, unfortunately, is tackled by a store security guard. That in and of itself is an issue, right? He didn't have the sneaker and could have just as easily said, she took off running, so I ran, but didn't actually steal anything. The problem, though, is that when he gets pulled into the office, he has drugs on him, crack and heroin. And so now, the question you would ask is, where are these kids' parents, right? We haven't seen his younger brother, at least I don't think we have, but it's mentioned that he has a younger brother, he has his mom and whatnot. He's under the age. I'm not familiar with the British court system, but I know that to some degree, it shares some similarities with the American justice system as far as how the laws work with drugs and things like that. I really don't know the details. I'm assuming that because Michael is a minor, he can probably get into trouble, but I highly doubt that he's going to be treated as severely as an adult would in such a situation. And so, but because he's a kid, they start telling him that he's going to get in trouble, that his mom is going to get in trouble as well. Just really giving this kid the blues and putting all this stress and strain on him. So they start questioning him about the drugs. Where did he get it? Who uses it? Who's he selling for? And, they tell him about all the bad stuff that could possibly happen if he doesn't cooperate. He doesn't know any better. This is likely his first time being arrested, and he ends up buckling under pressure and telling him that the drugs he has belongs to Dushane, right? He's selling for this guy. And so Dushane is obviously already on the local police officer's radar because they've been looking at him since the finding of Kamale's body. Not necessarily these specific police officers, but within the department, I'm sure. And in addition to that, they're probably just aware of him from him selling drugs and whatnot in the area. So here's the situation where you have someone that's found with drugs on them and they question the person, right? They call Dushane by name. And this person tells him that this is who he's gotten drugs from. Unbeknownst to Dushane, there are all of these problems around him, right? He's not aware of it at this point, but they can pose a serious threat. Sully is an idiot and has kidnapped his cousin, which should tell you, some family members, they might not be your favorite people. You hear about brothers killing brothers, sisters killing sisters, parents and kids and vice versa. But yet still there's a line, right? I don't think you should kill anyone for money, but let alone family. In this case, Sully's cousin has money on his head, like a contract from someone else. He lets him know about it, but then turns around and holds him for ransom. That's just it just tells you how unscrupulous Sully is. Watching the show the first time around, I had a completely different perspective on the show and on Sully. But I feel like Sully's just incredibly grimy. Like, he's just completely out for self, no loyalty, principles, morals, anything like that. A person like that, how do you do any kind of business with them? You can't trust somebody like that. And so we see here that he kidnaps his cousin, holds him for ransom, and it's like the guy is trying every opportunity he gets to get away from them, right? Things are just going left. Meanwhile, Dushane is carrying on with the lawyer lady that was appointed to him. She's a little bit crooked, right? We hear her having a phone conversation where she's telling whoever it is on the other line about Dushane that he has a lot of cash, it's dirty money, but they could use that and like clean it and whatnot, like laundering for him, investing in some plans that they have. Obviously, he's physically attracted to her. He chats her up, talks her into going out with him for drinks. One thing leads to another. They wind up back at her place, and in talking afterwards, she starts asking him questions, right? As mentioned while they were, I think it was at court, right? He doesn't have any assets in his name from a legal standpoint. It looks like he doesn't have a job, he doesn't have any money, doesn't own a car, doesn't own a house or anything like that. But she knows he's holding something. It's just that it's not legal. And so she starts asking him questions about his property, things that he owns. The reality is he can't put anything in his name because he doesn't have any proof of income. Whatever he has was obtained through illegal means. And so with that, she's sort of planted a bug in his ear. Like, you can tell he takes a lot of pride in what he's created. He lives on the fringes, but he's pretty much created this environment where he's able to make money, in whether legal or not, right? But he looks at it as, it goes back to this thing of wanting to create a better life for himself. That he'd been born and raised in Summerhouse. There's this idea that you're born at the bottom and that's where you're supposed to stay. And he takes pride in having turned this on its head. That, sure, he's using illegal means, but that he's creating a life for himself. He's getting the things that society has told him that he's undeserving of based on where he's come from. And so they have this conversation about people who start at the bottom and work their way up. And in this situation here, she kind of pokes holes in the reasoning that he has. Because sure, if he's taking great risks in trying to pursue this better life for himself, he's doing illegal things that can either result in him dying, going to jail, or some combination of those things. And by taking this risk, it's like he doesn't really have much of anything to show for it. Sure, he lives in an apartment, he might drive a car, but none of that stuff is in his name. Legally, he doesn't have any legal ownership of these things. He's going through all of this hassle, and from a legal standpoint, has nothing to show for it. And so she pokes holes in this view that he's the man, but not on paper, right? She points out that the things he's done, it's not really much of an achievement because Summerhouse isn't really anything to write home about as far as him having control over it. And for more harsh terms, him being like the king of the place, it's really nothing. So with her pointing that out, you can kind of see the wheels in his mind turning, especially once he goes back to Summerhouse and, he's standing above like his little crew and whatnot, looking at them. You can see the wheels turning in his head. She's planted this seed in his mind to view things differently. Now, granted, there's some truth to what she's saying, but we as the audience know that she has an ulterior motive. She's laying the groundwork to open him up to kind of taking the move she wants him to, right? Michael is released. He's told to kind of keep himself out of trouble. He can't go back and talk to Dushane, tell them everything that he's told the police. He can't tell the rest of the crew. At the very least, they would ostracize him. And at the worst, they might try to do something to him to shut him up or to warn him, right? Not just to warn him, but to warn the other kids as well. And so it's like you kind of get the sense of this unease with him being back in Summerhouse, right? Dushane pulls him to the side and asks him what happened. He basically lies to Dushane about what happened, and Dushane gives him some money, right? You get the sense of Dushane, he's taken a liking to this kid. He's manipulated him all the same, but to Dushane in his own way, he likes this kid, in part because he's so eager to please. Meanwhile, we see that Sully has taken a liking to this street kid, right? He uses him to run errands and they start to build a relationship of their own. So in a sense, you can look at both Dushane and Sully where they've now become mentors to these younger kids, but they're not really teaching them anything positive. The show was somewhat gritty, right? I remember when it first came out in like 2011. And so the quality of British shows at the time were really good in comparison to what was airing in America. And part of that is I like the presentation of people. It's something I've noticed with English television and movies where, because so much of TV and production here in America is done in Hollywood, you kind of get this highly idealized presentation of people where quite often it's like everyone has the same teeth. They have flawless skin. They're like ultra beautiful. And it's not to say that they're unattractive or anything like that, but they look like normal people. Like they don't look super glammed up. It's something that I actually like about the show, that the characters aren't overly stylized. I think people in American television series and movies, you kind of have that Hollywood effect. I think they have a more normal and human presentation of people, which is something that I enjoy. It's a style choice that I enjoy. Thanks for tuning in. To ensure you don't miss any episodes, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell, and check out my Top Boy playlist. Go ahead and click that thumbs up button if you like what you saw, and go ahead and share it on social media.